Well, here's a simple way to describe patterns. I like patterns. So if I'm telling people, yeah, it's going to be colder next week, it's because I looked at a couple of different sites. And for the entire period of the week next week, pretty much, it's going to be colder than the entire week we had here. So that's a way I can statistically be confident saying to people, oh yeah, it's going to be colder next week by, a few degrees on average most days of what they experienced this week. Another thing I can say is if I get hit by a car here, here is an RCMP territory, there's no other police force, I'd prefer being given first aid. And they might call the ambulance, but I don't want to go to the hospital because I might get medical services there. That's dangerous. So I'd prefer the RCMP kind of give me the basic first aid and take me back and let me sit for a bit at the RCMP office, give my report, but not go to the hospital. The reason for that is there's a lot more accountability in police forces like the RCMP than there is in the cultures of doctors. And again, that's related to patterns. I've been noticing a lot of patterns of police officers being investigated, by their culture or their own, or people in the same profession of law enforcement, and doing their job. The punishments are whatever they are, but the thing is at least they're bringing more accountability into their industry. You don't see this. I don't see kind of doctors giving a complaint against another doctor or anonymously saying there needs to be an investigation, or that the Association of Physicians or colleges or whatever, it doesn't go in the news. We did this. Same thing with, by the way, with educators. There's educators that see other educators do horrible things, and I seem to be the only one talking about it to the school districts or on my vlogs. And so yeah, and maybe when I'm at a police station and they're checking to see how I'm doing after they gave me basic first aid, and we'll have conversations about learning because they'll be more capable of that compared to teachers as well. So these are patterns, right, that are kind of noticeable, that when you don't get doctors helping to clean up their industries as much as police officers do, then it's sad. Another thing that's sad is politicians. Oh my God, they stick together. Police don't stick together as much as you think they do compared to politicians, doctors, educators. These are patterns. So, for example, politicians, at a time of history where, Trudeau doesn't just need his own party to support him in the hard choices that he consults a lot of people on, by the way, and that makes sure that he makes a good decision. And again, I'm not a fan of any politician. And I didn't vote, and I don't vote, and I haven't voted in years, because the last few times, years ago, my answer was no suitable candidates on the ballot. That's what I'd do again today if I voted. But to vote, I think you got to do your taxes, and the CRA doesn't allow me to do taxes because I don't want to do them until they pay me money they owe me and they audit my files. Anyways, politicians that like Pierre Poilievre, like Jordan B. Peterson supports Pierre Poilievre, but I mean, Pierre Poilievre is dividing Canada, is creating, not just in the government, but among Canadians, a lot of division, which is the last thing we need at this time of history where the Anthropocene has already started. So Jordan B. Peterson is not saying that it's Pierre Poilievre. He's saying that it's Trudeau because he's got an obsession that that's the guy he chooses to hate, and that he loses all objectivity because of it. Of course, he'll never have a conversation with somebody like me about it. So again, politicians, I know there's an opposition in the way that we work to the dominant party, but I mean, still, there are times in history when, it makes kind of common sense, like now, to not just argue for the sake of arguing. Like, the decisions are already hard for the dominant party in politics to make choices during climate emergencies and COVID social pandemics and the monetary paradigm collapsing again, while there's still this bigger divide being created among people. It's hard, right? It's hard to make these decisions in a failing system because there's no win. People turning against Trudeau, like the opposition, that would be in the exact same position if they won. That sometimes Trudeau can't give an answer about something that's still under investigation. Can you imagine if Pierre Poilievre decided to answer journalists in a way that, CSIS says this is confidential, or the RCMP, yeah, no, this is just for you, Mr. Prime Minister or whatever, and he divulges it, like he already knows this concept that it's not, that it would impede investigation, it would be dangerous to divulge certain information at certain times. You don't turn against the Prime Minister for that type of common sense. And yet in Canada, we do this stuff, and people love posting videos about it. Oh, he's not answering this question. Well, I mean, he's explaining sometimes why he's not answering, and you don't want to listen to that part. And it's because it's sensitive information at that current time. But if people don't get that and they criticize others for it, including MPs to MPs, I tell you, the division is a lot more what's happening than collaboration.